Merry bowl season and welcome back to the Lines College Football Podcast. I'm Brett Gibbons with TheLines.com, breaking down 3 bowl games on the day after Christmas, December 26th. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow The Lines on Twitter at TheLinesUS, and I'm at Road to CFB. Tune back in for other bowl breakdowns with Kelley Ford for previews and picks and everything going on this postseason, including the college football playoff that is growing large in the window here soon. And be sure to check out our other full lineup of shows, including Beat the Closing Number with Eli Hershkovich and Mo Nuwara, and the Lines Megapod featuring Stephen Andres and Matt Brown. Starting first with the Quick Lane Bowl with my Bowling Green State University Falcons against Minnesota. The Golden Gophers a 4-point favorite in this game. Game carries an over-under of just 39.5 points. These are 2 defensive-oriented teams that have a little bit slower of a pace here, and maybe not the most flash-fry offenses, let's put it that way. But this game kicks off at 2 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, of course, on Tuesday, December 26th from Ford Field in Detroit. Bowling Green was in the Quick Lane Bowl last year, lost to New Mexico State as the legend of Diego Pavia started up nationally there. Campus, though, for Bowling Green sits just 80 miles from Ford Field, so a little bit of a travel advantage there for the Falcons. Bowling Green also beat Minnesota in Minneapolis 14-10 during that 2021 season, so to say that PJ Fleck and crew have that game in their mind, fresh in their mind, yeah, they probably do, and they're probably out looking to correct that, as it was one of the truly shocking results of that year. The Falcons are without a couple of players, important players, namely all-MAC corner Jalen Husky. Their star running back, Terrion Stewart, has not played since Week 10, and his complement, Teron Keith, transferred. So if neither of them go, Bowling Green's going to be looking at a third-string running back for this game. Now, they do use a 2 QB system with Connor Bazelak being the primary passer and Cameron Orth, kind of a bigger goal line, Taysom Hill type rusher guy, pop passes, short yardage guy. Both of those players are going to return next year, which means they're both going to be available for this bowl game. Minnesota's without their starting quarterback, Ethan Kaliak-Manis, and now they're down to third-string Cole Kramer, who has just 2 pass attempts this season, 6 snaps, and I don't know, maybe $30,000 in his pocket, depending if you believe the rumors that they had to pay him to stay or whatever's going on there. But their star running back, Darius Taylor, has not played since Week 8. I'm keeping an eye on if he's playing. However, backup Jordan Newman came out blazing at 200 rushing yards and a pair of scores in his debut. I wouldn't overlook this kid being an X factor in this game whatsoever. Now, Minnesota could also be without their starting safeties, including All-American Tyler Nubin. Haven't heard anything yet. Heard he could sit out. He's supposed to be an earlier round NFL draft pick. Again, All-American. So if he decides to play in this game, great. But he could be a late opt-out. Now, since opening at plus 5.5, the market's been all over Bowling Green. If you're going to bet them, I'd probably take them to win outright. That's a general, I think, when you're betting bowl games. If you're betting the underdog, just take them to win outright. More often than not, they do anyway. They lead the country in takeaways. Minnesota's allowed almost 300 rushing yards per game in their last 3 games. Like, they've gotten destroyed by multiple backs. Even if Bowling Green doesn't have their top back in there, they could be picking up some yards on the ground. Their offensive line has been playing really well. I do worry a little bit, though, about how Bowling Green is going to score, even with the way that Minnesota's rush defense has been lately. They've had time to game plan, and BG's without those top 2, those are 2 of their better playmakers on their team. But Minnesota does have the size advantage, so I'm looking to the first half here. Maybe that's a cowardly way of looking at it, but I'm taking the Gophers minus 2.5 in that first half there. I think they keep the ball on the ground, keep it out of their inexperienced quarterback's hands. BG historically, not a good bowl team, guys. Scott Loeffler in general is about a 30 to 40% against the spread coach. It's not... they haven't stepped up in these kind of moments before. Last year, it was around to pick them, but they were generally favored, and they lost that game, New Mexico State. The reason I'm staying away from the full game, though, is that Minnesota's rush defense long-term and Bowling Green's ability to force turnovers makes me a little bit... I'm not loving it on this side of 3, of course. So I'm taking Minnesota minus 2.5 in the first half here. Moving forward, we go down to Dallas, Texas for the first Responder Bowl between Texas State and Rice. The Bobcats are 5.5-point favorites here, and this game carries an over-under 59.5 points. It kicks off at 5:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN from Gerald J. Ford Stadium, home of SMU, one of 13 primary FBS venues hosting bowls this year. Now, Texas State opened as a 6.5-point favorite, and that line was bet all the way down to 4.5, and now they're starting to see a little bit more steam their way. This is the first FBS bowl game for Texas State. They joined back in 2013. Took them 10 years, but hey, here we are in the postseason. Now, Rice, they're without quarterback JT Daniels. He unfortunately had to medically retire from football after suffering another concussion. He hadn't played since week 9, so if you look at those games, Rice finished 2-2 with losses to SMU and UTSA. I can't really blame him with those losses. Those are two very good football teams. Quarterback A.J. Padgett, he started last year's Lightning Tree Bowl. He actually went for 303 against Southern Miss. Otherwise, these teams are pretty much intact. So we're looking, Padgett, he only has a 6.7 ADOT this year. Throws a pretty nice deep ball, but, Rice is 106 in seconds per play, and both teams turn the ball over quite a bit. Texas State, they just extended first-year head coach G.J. Kinney, well-earned in my opinion here. This team is really going to be excited to play in this game. First bowl game, just extend their head coach. He's sticking around for a while. Soared well over expectations. This team is playing really well. The Bobcats are also a little bit more intact. It looks like T.J. Finley, their quarterback, will play. I heard some rumblings maybe about him transferring, but it appears that won't be the case unless he's a real late or waits until after the bowl game. For me, this is Texas State. Anything under 7 points, I think they're the better team. Their offense has been firing on all cylinders. The defense is spotty, but I don't know that Rice's offense, specifically the passing attack, is good enough to really, really hurt them in that department. However, if you are backing Rice, if you don't, you don't trust Texas State that much, I would also back under 59.5 points. I think the route to victory here, if you're looking at it, ball control, that plotting pace, the Owls allowed 272 yards per game over the last 3. That's the 8th best mark in the country. So if they're going to step up, play really good defense, maybe you don't trust the Bobcats all that much, I would take, if you're taking Rice, I would also take under 59.5 points. Final bowl game on the 26th, we have the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. It should be a really fun one. If you like offensive football, this is your game here. UNLV takes on Kansas. The Jayhawks are 12.5-point favorites, so maybe not the closest contested game, at least the expectations, but this does carry a nice over-under of 64.5 points. It kicks off at 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN from Chase Field in Phoenix. Kansas, this is the first back-to-back bowl appearance for them since 2007-2008. Last year, of course, the Jayhawks lost that wild back-and-forth overtime game against Arkansas. They're probably looking to correct that, course correct. UNLV, they're playing their first bowl game since 2013. Now, it looks like this is going to be a Jason Bean game. Jalen Daniels will return next season. Jason Bean won't. So that tells me he's going to get the start. They're not going to force Daniels in here, even though bowl games don't count toward red shirts. Their offensive coordinator, though, was hired away by Penn State. To me, the system's in place, so I don't think that changes really much of anything there. Lance Leipold is kind of the guy that calls shots anyway when it comes to going for it on fourth down and those kind of things. So I really don't think the offense is going to be hindered by that. However, their starting left tackle opted out. Freshman is going to be starting in his place there. And Kansas was already down 2 other offensive line starters in Week 13, so watch for their status. Down 3 starters on the offensive line isn't great. UNLV, pretty decent sack rush. They're a top 40 sack rush according to PFF, and they have a 6.6% sack rate, which is about middle of the road, but they're not inept. Let's put it that way. The Rebels, though, they were down a pair of starting safeties in the Mountain West Championship game. That did cost them quite a bit. I think that is pretty important, so I keep an eye on the status of those guys. But that game, they also had issues defending the run. And my biggest issue is Kansas is 7th in the country in rush EPA. So they gave up, I think, 240 combined yards between Boise State quarterback Taylon Green and Ashton Genty. But Kansas, very good rushing team. They're very creative. They get their guys in space. And if you have issues defending the run, that's going to be a problem. If you have college props availability, I know not every state does, but I'm probably taking overs on whatever rushing yards I can get my hand on. Be it running backs, quarterbacks, you name it. I'm probably taking overs on those. But with a number as big as this and a total as high as this, high totals, high variance, I'm really staying away from the full game spread here. However, you can take Kansas at -7 first half. I think that's the way that I'm going to lean here. It's available at multiple shops at time of recording here. Come out fast, run the football. It's an indoor environment, assuming that they close the roof, unlike they did in 2021. They had that brief torrential downpour in the desert. Taking the first half, it avoids the backdoor potential with UNLV's very competent, potent offense. They kept their coaching staff intact, which is a really big deal there. They still have Brennan Marion as the offensive coordinator, so I think they'll have a good game plan. And again, 12.5 points with the Kansas defense. That's okay. It's better than last year, but it's not great. That's something that I'd like to avoid, any sort of backdoor, late, bad beat type stuff. So I'm taking Kansas first half -7. Hop on over to our Discord server where you can connect with over 4,000 sports betting fans and get live updates in the college football channel. Join a sharp and very active community. I promise it'll make you better for college football. Don't forget to subscribe to the Lines YouTube for weekly college football odds and betting videos for the remainder of the postseason. We're breaking down every single bowl game. The college football playoff will be here at some point during the offseason, talking some changes and things like that. But subscribe to us on your podcasting app of choice as well, be it Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you name it. And drop us a good review if you like the show. Let me know down in the comments where you lean on these games. And Merry Bowl season, everyone. I hope you enjoy these games the day after Christmas. Sit at home with your family or not. Enjoy it. Thank you so much as always for watching. I'm Brett Gibbons. We'll see you next time.